Hey, this is Dave with Rough Notes Magazine. We're all about helping agents and brokers thrive, and we're impressed with what you're doing. Can we feature you and your team on our front cover?
Chris, tell me the feeling you had when you first heard that your agency was going to be on the front cover of Rough Notes Magazine.
To be honest, it was pretty exciting. I've read Rough Notes for 30 years and had no idea that we would hit the radar, and I got an email. So it was pretty fun. And I was here at my desk and got the email, and I was like, well, that's super exciting. Our team deserves that. So that's pretty awesome.
You know, I bet you were just as excited, if not more than I would be, Chris, because of what you've done. But I want the front cover listeners, the Rough Note listeners, to really kind of listen to. Chris is excited. Chris, when I talked to you on the phone and we were setting this up, I could hear the passion deep in your voice. You seem like to be somebody who keeps your passion for what you do, because I think the listeners are going to hear about it. But you're a very easygoing person. I don't think I'm the first to ever tell you that, right, Chris?
Pretty laid back.
You are. And to all you listeners, you're going to love this next 20, 30 minutes because what he's done is amazing. So, Chris, congratulations on being on the front cover. We all know that that's a huge honor. I can't remember. They told me before, but I think this makes around 240 or something like that they've had over the years. Or maybe it's 300. Anyways, it's not very much. And that just shows in this great industry with all these people. Congratulations to you. A couple things I want to talk about. I really have to talk about listeners. You're really going to hear a lot about employees, customers, and carrier relationships. I went in the notes section that I was reading of the interview. It was over and over that you heard this mentioned from Chris. And then when he talked about each one of his team members or his leadership team, they were talking about it as well, or was mentioned in what they do. So, Chris, give us an amount, and I know it might be hard, but start us in 2020 because that's where you were. That gives us you prestige. And then what led you to Tower?
So when we started Tower Street, the key to the thing that we were super passionate about is focusing on culture. That's something that's missing. Everyone talks about being focused on culture. And we spent an enormous amount of time. We work with a lady named Chris Peterie, who is the executive director of the Independent Agents of Texas. And we hired her to be a consultant for our agency. And we started with a book called The Ideal Team Player because we were so passionate and so focused on making the culture of our agency different and better. And so The Ideal Team Player talks about bringing on people that are humble, hungry, and smart, which is a Patrick Lencioni book. And we spent enormous amount of time focusing on bringing in great people for our team. We've actually passed on a lot of people that are very capable in our industry in exchange for hiring the right people, the right culture kind of people. And it's made all the difference in the world. And so the people thing is a super big deal to us.
It is. And I hope people understand it as the cliche that our greatest asset, but it's the truth. It literally is the truth. There's nothing else that we own more. I mean, the buildings, you can find a lot of buildings, which is a literal and physical asset, right? But it's sometimes to find that person, as you said, that fits. That's so super hard, super hard. One of the things that you talk about, you have a unique experience that leads to a great reputation in the industry. Now, being the president of this large independent broker in Dallas, and then you just going and starting your own and looking at your employees and the best thing that you can do, what do you feel what would you say is your unique proposition to the world?
I mean, I think a lot of times people focus on their own accolades, and we set the agency up and we focus on three basic things. You said them, how we take care of our clients, how we take care of our employees, how we take care of our clients, and then how we focus with our partners and our carriers. And so by looking at all those and investing in every single one of those as much as we can, we have truly built something unique, because when we focus on our clients, we spend an enormous amount of time and energy through technology, and we invest a lot with our customers to make sure that they get the absolute best experience they can. And then we also focus on a lot of training for our employees and culture for our employees. So we invest a ton on what we think are most important things we can. And then we couldn't do anything without our carriers. So we're very fortunate to have the relationships and the partnerships we have with those people.
When you invest time and resources in your employees, give me an example of what you feel is a strong point of view of how you're doing it. Maybe even other agencies are doing it. But what would you say is that time and resources? Give me an example of that, could you?
So we, one of the things we do is we spend a lot of people want to grow out of the business they work with. They want an opportunity to advance and grow. And so we spend a lot of time on education on all the agents that work with. We have a meeting on once a week. We talk about strategy, and we spend a lot of time. We read a lot of books together. We just kind of grow both personally and individually. And then we also have another meeting where we talk about how to become the best at our actual trade, which is a coverage deal. Right now, we're working with the Institute, and we're taking about 25 people on our team through the ARM designation, which is pretty awesome because we do risk management for our clients. And so, in a couple of months, we'll end up having 25 people hopefully graduate with the ARM designation, which is a pretty big investment financially. So that's time and energy and reading and learning is a lot of the investment we make on our team.
I love it. I'm telling you, Chris, as an agency owner since 2010, me personally, it's just sunk in into the last 3 or 4 years. I remember I heard Elon Musk say, he said, we don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people and have them tell me what to do, right? And that was a big click to me. And I think a lot of agencies, and I want to hear you, Chris, if you agree or disagree, a lot of agencies out there are so worried at trying to find somebody at 40,000, 50,000, 60,000. It doesn't matter the amount. They're trying to find them based on that rather than, hey, maybe you have to pay 6 figures or more to be able to get somebody who's going to be instrumental in earning twice that amount. Do you see that a lot? What was your thought there?
Yeah, a lot of people try to say, a lot of people try to find the cheapest person to to fill a desk. We just want to find the best people, and we've been very fortunate. Our claims people are amazing. We have some absolutely amazing people on our team, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah, gosh, it's something that I wish I would have taken more seriously when I was a younger owner. At the same time, I only had 1 or 2, and we're all wearing, a million different hats. Speaking of that, you were, hold on. We'll go back to employees in a minute, but I want to go back now to the customer because you created this great experience based on the Chubb model, claims first, as you were telling me. But also, I love the technology. You say you guys have invested in a ton of technology. Digitizing apps was something that was specifically mentioned. Tell me about this, Chris, how you invest in that customer relationship.
Well, so we always look to find, there's a book called, I believe that if Chick-fil-A can spend 30 cents on a chicken nugget and have everybody in the world talk about how amazing their experience is, and everybody knows about my pleasure and all that kind of stuff. If people can do something like that, and we get paid, hundreds of thousands of dollars by our clients, then we can surely find a way to give them a great experience. And so the app digitization that we're talking about is, we use Indio, but we did it from the very first day. We implemented it from the very beginning. We hired an intern, which happened to be my son, and he went in and backfilled all of our clients' previous emails, and that's been pretty awesome. We spend the claim stuff that you talked about. We try to continue to look at every experience we have. There's a book by a guy named Horst Schulze. If you've heard of him, he's the guy that was Neiman Marcus's founder. It's called
I have not.
Excellence Wins. And so we're going out as an agency and we're trying to create an experience for our clients and our employees and our carriers that's unique. And so Horst, the first book we looked at was this Excellence Wins book. And it's all about, the Neiman Marcus experience. And then we're going to go study other companies that are very similar to that and find a way to create the right kind of experience for our clients, so they can enjoy what, the Tower Street experience. So,
Chris, you've mentioned something over and over again. What's amazing, I think, about highly successful people is they say the same stuff over and over and over. And it may seem boring to other people, but if you're smart, you realize, Chris, that that's just the way you think. And I really applaud you for that. One of the things that you say all through this is you're mentioning books, right? I've read out there before that the average person will read less than 5 books in their lifetime, but the average CEO reads 20 to 30 in a year and will usually read multiple at one time, right? And I think that holds true. And I think the thing that I've heard before, readers are leaders and leaders are readers. People want to know, like, I wonder how this business did it. And Chris, you just like, well, why do we have to guess? Let's all get the book. Let's read the book. Let's sit around and talk about it. How can we weave that into the fabric of insurance? And let's rock and roll with it. I also encourage you to read another famous book, which is called Customer Service is Just Foreplay. It's the modern customer experience that will separate you. I wrote it in 2014 when no one was talking about customer experience. It's an Amazon #1 bestseller. It's kind of old and outdated because a lot of the stuff I was talking about that's going to happen today is happening today. So you can kind of see it. But if you want to read that, matter of fact, I'm going to get my team to listen to this. Let's make sure we send Chris a copy of that. We're going to send you a copy because I know you'll read it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So anyways, I love that. I love that you're reading like this. That tells me so much about you. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Excellence Wins. I'm gonna check that out as well. I like that. Let's talk so much. Let's go back to the employees. I want to ask you a question. There used to be this time up to maybe now or in the future where we used to say we would be talking as agency owners or business people, and we say, hey, how many people do you have in your agency? And we would say 5, 10, 30. And for the listeners, his is 70. You started out with 12, if I remember correctly, and now you're roughly at 70 employees. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is being big and having a lot of employees a bragging thing like it used to be? When we're trying to enhance with technology? For instance, I don't know how much revenue 70 people will create. But I know that about 30 to 40 people usually is the average for 3.5, 4 million in revenue. Just being rough. That's what I have found out to be true. And I think people brag about it. And I don't think that's the smart thing to do with that being our #1 expense. But I think it should be smarter for us to say how we should be 30, but we're actually about 28. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say there, Chris?
We're definitely more inclined to hire. We will hire people if there are people on the market that are the right people, even if we don't need them, because we know the right people will create the right value. And we've done that. We've overhired, and we're much more inclined about bringing the right people on the team. And, we want to make sure that if there's a bad apple, we manage that. So from our perspective, we always focus on, we have some pretty amazing people on our team. Marilyn Nesbitt started with us. She came over from the other agency, Jana, Shaq, Wilson, Tanya, Ashley. We have amazing people, and they are all completely focused. And I'd be remiss to not say that some of the people that have done some absolutely amazing lifting on our deal, because we started in COVID when the day that we started, our district attorney came around and shut the city of Dallas down. like literally a week later. And so we had to basically bootstrap during the middle of COVID, and to have people like Jana do all the work that she did, we had to basically move our client book, and we ended up, we had to go get contracted with probably 100 different insurance carriers and licensed in 50 states. And,
and most of them weren't open doing anything.
No, it was impossible. Like getting them on the phone and getting contracts and then having them approve things on their stuff. And our team with Ashley, but Jana and Marilyn and our entire team has been unbelievable putting the team together. So,
well, I've got a couple friends who actually started their agency, left other agencies, started their agency right at the beginning of COVID, and they actually didn't make it. So kudos to you. What I think is funny is you were probably at that. I'm just being funny here, Chris, when I say this. You were probably at that other agency thinking about leaving maybe a year, 2, 3 years ago. You finally pull the trigger and COVID happens. You're thinking, what in the world? Well, that's some of the best, worst timing ever, but look where you are. If you're going to make it through that, you're going to make it, right?
Yeah.
And good for you. Because I don't know if you did point that out. You were maybe the listeners didn't hear it. You were the president of that agency. So you had some good experience underneath you, and good for you. Hire. I want to ask you about this. I want to kind of create a picture that's a little more clear on this, Chris. And I've wanted to do this for a while, and I think you're exactly the kind of person that can help me. A lot of people like to talk, but you're actually somebody who can give examples. And I want to just talk about this for a minute. Hire slow and fire quickly, or hire slow, fire fast is what we hear a lot of. As an agency owner myself, I try to think about that as I hire people. We usually don't have to fire, but as of recently, we did have to fire somebody. And I didn't fire quickly, Chris, but maybe I did. That's part of the question. I hired her in April, and we just let her go at the beginning or at the end of July. I would say we probably had some inkling and knew probably around the end of May, beginning of June. But my thought was I hired her in commercial, and she had commercial experience, but to not give her a month or 2 months or 3 months of training before assessing that. And I questioned myself, Chris. I said, how long is firing too quickly? Is firing quickly at the first inkling? Is it after you've given them the path and they're not following it? In your mind, Chris, what does fire quickly mean?
I think people are important. So we want to give everyone the opportunity they deserve. But I do believe that as soon as you realize that they aren't the right people, that waiting doesn't solve the problem. It never does. It always becomes worse. And so we had someone come in that was truly not the right person for our team, and we figured that out. And the guy was probably here 3 weeks, and we could just tell immediately he was just not the right culture. I mean, it's never too soon to get rid of the wrong kind of person. But on the other hand, people are super big. They're so important. I mean, you're impacting their lives. We don't ever, if it's our mistake that we bring the wrong person in and we let them go, we try to do it in a very fair manner, and we give them a parachute to, transition on, because we understand that people are super important. So if it's our decision to let people go quickly, we don't just let them go and, let them deal with their life. So.
That's exactly what I did with this lady. I let her go. I thought about, Chris, keeping her until September 1st. She's got a major life event that's coming up here, and I knew it. And I thought, okay, well, I'll wait and just pay her because I want her to get through that event, and then I'll let her go in September. But it was causing issues on the service side. And so I just said, you know what, I'm going to let you go now, and then we're just going to pay you for August, because I think she kind of got it too. And so it worked out that well. But I had business partners who questioned me in that, right? And I said the exact same thing you just said. This was on us, right? We're the one who took a chance on it. We're the one who didn't make the right decision. overall, she's going to work good in another agency. She just was not going to work good in our agency.
We've
So
been
that's
very
cool.
fortunate. We've interviewed some amazing people, but we also test them. I go back to that ideal team player, and it talks about hiring humble, hungry, and smart people. And when you get into their book, they have some interview questions and what kind of responses you get. And when you look at that deal, we've interviewed some people and they've given us some interesting answers that don't fit who we are. And we've passed on some incredibly experienced people in a market when it's hard to pass on good people. But our culture is so much more important to us that we would rather forego a capable person to screw up our culture. And so it's harder because we have to work super hard to go out and recruit people, and they're hard to come by. But, I'd rather work super hard on hiring the right people than the long-term dealing with someone that just doesn't fit the right kind of culture.
Totally. Very, very well said. Sometimes you got to risk getting rid of a good person and sacrifice of the whole culture. And that's so true. So true.
We do background checks. I mean, our industry is super small. And so part of this slow thing is we do the Colby test and the strength. We spend a lot of money on aptitude test. And we also call a lot of our carriers to make sure that what they happen to know about people, and our carriers kind of know what we're building, and they'll say, hey, that's a really smart person, but might not fit your culture, and so part of the hire slow is to, kind of do as much research as we can.
What is your book split, Chris? Personal lines, commercial lines, life. I know you do a lot of stuff.
We do. We're probably, I would say 75-25 commercial, personal. We just got into the benefits practice. We also have risk management revenue that comes into our book. We have HR consulting revenue that comes into our book. So we're doing a lot of value add to our clients. And we also do some risk transfer, which is contract management and certificate management and all that kind of stuff. So we're super big on, but probably the majority from a premium revenue standpoint, commission revenue, the majority of our revenue comes out of, it's probably 75-25 commercial. And then our personal lines is super high net worth stuff. So we have an amazing team with Marilyn and Ashley doing the high net worth practice. So
amazing stuff. So did you set out purposely with a plan to say, hey, we're going to create HR eventually, we're going to create this or that? Or did you find the right person and say, you know what, I've got something that we could create for you?
Well, we found a problem, and we were committed to fixing the problem. I think the thing that most people do when you find employees that are having problems, it's because they're focused on themselves. I don't have the right keyboard. I'm not sitting in the right place. And if you can find a way to get people to focus on other people and investing in other people and serving other people, it's kind of like if you've ever been in Dallas, they have a company called Sewell Cadillac, which is Carl Sewell wrote a book called Customers for Life. And when you walk through there, people are just super engaged in making sure the customers have an amazing experience. And you don't see anybody ever kind of negative and clumping up around each other and talking about, it's always about how can I help you? What can I do? And so finding the right kind of looking for ways that we can better serve our clients when they have needs is kind of been more our issue of how do we build out these other areas to improve our ability to serve people. We've spent an absolute ton of money on our loss control and our claims, and when most agencies our size wouldn't do that. But we've spent a lot of money to making sure our clients get the absolute best experience they can. And it doesn't make a lot of sense for an agency our size, but I do believe that if you find the right way to serve people, I think there's an author that talks about find a way to if you focus on serving your client, the money will come. Is basically a simple way to do it.
Help everybody get what they need. You'll get everything that you want.
Yeah, exactly. And so from my perspective, we didn't necessarily think we were going to do HR consulting, but when in hand with employee benefit services, it's super important because most of the clients that we serve, small to mid-sized kind of clients, they don't have the resources, and we can help them and do that for them. So it's more of an investment for finding a way to better serve our clients.
Yeah. I think you Rough Notes listeners need to hear that. There is great value in other lines and avenues of revenue other than just the P&C revenue, risk advising, doing things like that. And if you don't have it in-house, there's companies out there like a Yellowbird. I'm not paid by them or anything. It's who we use in our agency. And then that's like an outsourcing company, Chris, that I can say, hey, I need this kind of audit. And they contact some person in our area who that's their specialty. I think a lot of agents try to go into businesses and they try to be everything to everyone, right? They try to white label the billing and white label the claims and all that. And I think some of that's legitimate. But I also, what we do as a strategy is we go in, Chris, and we try to say, we don't know everything, but we know the people who know everything, right? And we will act as that turnstile to be able to bring in those people after looking at the insurance program. You guys kind of similar to that and what you guys do, or you guys have your own in-house?
We have a lot of really amazing people in-house. And I mean, I think we kind of do both because you can't know everything. Like you say, you can't have a EPA expert and you can't have a OSHA expert and you can't have a DOT expert and you can't have there's a lot of risk continues to evolve, right? Mm-hmm. And so being able to keep up with it all, I mean, you'd have to have an enormous army. So I think what you're doing is probably easier probably for most agents to do. And relatively speaking, I think, but finding good people in whatever area it is probably a good strategy too, depending on what the clients need,
Billy Williams, who happens to be there in Dallas, and next time I come see him, I'm going to see you. I want to come by your agency. He I totally lost my thought.
Who's Billy Williams? Tell me about Billy.
Billy Williams is he wrote the $10 million agency. He shows you how to build a $10 million agency in 5 years. Billy Williams is the most amazing person. He was in the military for 20 years. A lot of people don't know this about the gentleman, but he retired when he was around 40 or 41. He actually started the recruiting out of Huntsville, Alabama. They gave him a budget of a couple $1 million and said, hey, we need to create a recruiting program. 4 years later, when he left the military, they have a budget of like $3 billion because what he can do. He's also a doctor. He's got a doctorate in finance. But he went to Allstate, started creating tons of Allstate agencies. Allstate ran him out because he was doing too good. And so then he started so what he does is he's not an insurance agent. He's a consultant, meaning he buys into your agency and then he puts in all of his processes and everything that are pretty phenomenal. So I fly down and play golf with him every once in a while. He's instrumental to me. I would like to stop and see you, Chris, because I think this is cool. And I've got some things that I would like to talk to you off record about some of your strategies. So just like reading those books, no reason to reinvent the wheel when Chris is doing it in Dallas, Texas and knocking it out of the park,
Chris, we got a long way to go.
Huh? Yeah. I do too. This is what Billy said. Excuse me. That's what he said. Billy said that your network is directly proportional to your net worth. So that was something that really got me because I realized that as an insurance agency or as an owner or as an agent, if I could build up my network of smart people that then I could use, that would help build my net worth, and I think it's helped. Well, wrapping up, Chris, what is something that you would like to wrap up with here, sir?
Okay, I will say that investing in people has been probably the most important thing I've had the opportunity to do in the business. And so, you talk about bringing people on. I'd say some of the greatest people that work in the agency weren't in the insurance business before they joined us. And to see how they've blossomed and grown, Ashley's probably one of the best high net worth agents in the country. Jana is probably one of the most amazing commercial insurance folks. Marilyn Nesbitt's amazing. And we keep hiring great people and then investing in them, helping them learn our industry. And so I think the ability to, the network that we have can also be developed internally. And so the great thing about what we do is we have the ability to go out and find great people and then turn around and invest in them personally and help them become the best people they can be. And I think that's probably part of the reason you want to hire slowly, is to really find the right kind of people that are willing to learn and grow. So
You're right.
That's all I got.
You're so right.
I'll
also tell you, Billy Wagner, he's another agent down in Florida. Heck, he's probably up around 50 mil in premium. He is real big with his people, creates career paths for them. A single mother wants to move out of her apartment and buy a house. He creates plans for them for over 2 to 3 years that, hey, if we do this and we do this, you should be able to get here. His people are super dedicated. All of his employees come from other employees who are telling other their friends, like, hey, you need to come here. He wrote a book recently, actually just wrote his second book. He's a phenomenal agency owner as well. Billy Wagner, he's down out of Texas, or not Texas, you're out of Texas. He's out of Florida. And I can't remember. It's like St. Augustine or Jupiter or something like that. I think he has a Brightway agency. He was one of the first Brightway agencies out there, Billy Wagner. So, anyways, thank you, Chris. You got something else to say? Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's also great to find other people that are givers and takers in the world. And there are a lot of agency owners and principals that will invest and share other information. I'm in a group called InterSure, and InterSure has been great because it's a group of agencies. But I know that you have Mindshare, and we've been fortunate. We spend a lot of money to invest in groups like that, to be around other people that'll share and help each other learn. So this is a great opportunity because spending time with you helps us, kind of puts other ideas in people's heads. So you have a mastermind group and those kind of things. I think ultimately what we want to be around is other givers, people that are willing to share. So I think that's pretty awesome too, what you're doing. So
thank you very much, Chris. And they don't ever say take and give. It's always give and take. And so I love that you say that. The law of reciprocity is one of the most powerful things that we have of the laws out there. So, wow, good stuff. Chris, I'm telling you, you and I can sit around and we can talk about books, because you talked about a lot of books that I haven't read, and I'm easily reading 15 to 20 books a year. I love them like you. I remember one of the most powerful things is Barack Obama. Obviously, we all know who he is. I personally know him. He was a senator in Illinois, and when he became the federal senator, we were invited, us and about 5 or 6 other insurance agents were invited to his office. And one of the things that I thought was amazing is when you walked in, he has these big, huge wooden desk, and on the desk, he has books outlined on the front of it and then on the side, and there were books piled on top of each other, just like 2 deep. And I asked him about it, and he showed us like 3 books that he was reading. And one was like a biography, one was a political book, and one was like not a romance novel, but something that was just like a nonfiction or fiction. So it was really, really powerful. And Chris, I don't hear a lot of people. Sometimes whenever I talk, I'm always talking like, oh, I read this book and this book said this. It was very refreshing to hear that come from you. Whether you have college or not, I think that is the number one way to learn in life, right? I mean, people have already figured this stuff out. Right. We just need to figure it out for our own life, right?
Yeah. You can learn it on your own. It's just a lot harder as opposed to listening and reading is probably a smarter way to do things.
Yep. It's just like mom. We didn't listen, but boy, she turned out being right.
Yep.
So thank you, Chris, very much for your time. I really, truly do it. Thanks for what you're doing over there at Tower Street. One of the most important things is that you're living and shining an example. For so long, people have driven by these independent insurance agencies and said, hey, that's where my grandma and grandpa used to get their insurance. I guess I'm supposed to go there now. They go there and they run into an old archaic system back from 20, 30 years ago. What's even worse is when they're with a Geico or they're with a Direct and they're getting the service and then they try to jump back over to an independent insurance agent and they're met with this old archaic way of doing business. I love people like yourself, Chris. And I love the fact that Rough Notes points out people like yourself, because I think there's a lot of people who are doing it the way they've done it forever and they've really mastered it. I'm not here to say one's better than the other. But when I talk about what is the image that society should see, man, this is a great industry. I say it all the time on my podcast, Chris, and this is the greatest industry God ever created. It really, truly is. And I started the podcast Agency Intelligence a long time ago to give a voice to those who have no voice. And when I thought about that in 2012, I didn't know it, but I was thinking of you, Chris. And it's important that people get a voice, that sit in their office, that build 12 to 70 people who create all these great things, understand the relationship with their employees, their carriers, and their customers. But we don't get to hear it, right? We read about it. We maybe think that it's out there. But I want to thank you and applaud you, Chris, for being that. For all three of those people you're leading as an independent agent, it makes us all look better and it makes us look professional. So thank you very much for that. And for all you Rough Notes listeners, you know you're listening to the best podcast and you're reading the best magazine ever, because we try to take it from the paper and bring it to the digital stream. Tell me your thoughts, tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. This has been Jason Cass with Front Cover, a Rough Notes podcast with Mr. Chris Peterie of Tower Street Insurance down there in Texas. Check him out. We